Hi everyone, my name is Francesco Petrola-Prata, and today I will be discussing my AMD strategic assessment as well as the external environmental analysis that AMD operates in. So first, we'll be talking about the contents and specifically the order of the highlights that will be discussed. So first, we'll be looking at the external environments that AMD operates in. Then we'll be looking at the mission and organizational method that AMD practices. Following that, we'll be looking at their generic competitive and diversification strategies and seeing how that translates into excellent financial performance, as well as how they use these strategies to increase their overall growth. This ties into their value chain expansion that has been occurring over the last 10 years, as well as how that expansion fits into their international business model. SWOTs between organizations will be analyzed as well, and we'll be seeing exactly what AMD's core competency is out of those strengths. Following that, we'll be ending with AMD's corporate culture, and more specifically their leadership and how that has influenced their corporate culture for the benefit of the entire company. So, looking first at the semiconductor industry. It is an exponentially rising business that has been growing ever since products have been incorporating more smart functions, more computers into everyday products. We're talking vehicles, we're talking smartphones, smart watches, medical devices, appliances. Everything needs semiconductors nowadays to run these smart computer programs. Thus, these chip manufacturers have been performing exceedingly well, with a net value of over $3 trillion, looking at all 10 of the top 10. The annual growth rate for this industry is expected to be 8% over the next 5 years, which is fantastic looking at all other industries. And while AMD is a part of the whole industry, they fit into a more niche segment, and that would be selling processors for personal computers and data centers, but they are beginning to expand outside of that. And looking at who they face in the most intense rivalries, NVIDIA and Intel are the biggest rivals. AMD specializes, or Advanced Micro Devices, specializes in producing graphical processing units and central processing units, GPUs and CPUs. NVIDIA and Intel specialize in GPUs and CPUs respectively. Both specialize in one product. So AMD makes both, but they also have to compete with two different rivals that specialize in one specific good. Looking at environmental factors and forces that shape the industry into what it is today. One big factor is the supply chain disruptions that occurred due to COVID. It affected all businesses across the globe, but specifically semiconductors due to the very complex supply chain that they operate under to get their rare earth minerals and other intensive components that are necessary to make these products. AMD was hit especially hard as those that were caught up in the crypto mining craze of the last couple of years, those who bought graphical processing units to mine Bitcoin, Ethereum, other blockchain cryptocurrencies, which led to an immense demand but not enough supply to meet, which led to a lot of consumer dissatisfaction across the board from all of these firms. It forced AMD and competitors to rethink how their business operates and the importance of making sure that their materials arrive on time, which has led to more onshore development and manufacturing to stop reliance on such a complicated system. All five forces in a five forces analysis have a strong role in decision making in this industry. They all do, but rivalries in particular have the strongest influence. This rivalry between AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel, especially AMD and NVIDIA, has been very intense for over a decade, and it influences a lot of their decisions in terms of when they release new products, the deals for those products, and who they appeal to who in their specific firm. AMD has lessened this pressure, though, lessened the effect that rivalry has through horizontal integration and refocusing generic strategies, which will be talked about in further detail as this presentation continues, but this includes related diversification for a lot of AMD's recent decisions. But rivalry still needs to exist, though, as rivalry will improve both businesses in terms of how well they make their products and how well they proliferate them to consumers. It also benefits consumers as they are usually getting the best quality product possible to compete with their competitors. This leads into the overall industry attractiveness that we face. The industry is extremely financially attractive. It would be an understatement to say that. Semiconductors are only going to be needed more and more by everyday consumers for, as mentioned, smart devices. And thus, to capitalize on this ever-growing demand, these manufacturers are going to need to ensure material security at all times for the future so that disruptions previously won't happen again, and ensure that all their consumers are able to get the products that they want. On top of this, AMD also needs to increase vertical and horizontal integration, which they have begun steps towards, and this will allow them to ensure financial security in case an event such as this ever happens again. Next, we'll look at AMD in particular, and one particular thing we'll look at is their mission statement and the mission statements of the rivals. AMD talks about building great products that accelerate next-generation computing experiences, which is similar to Intel's purpose, which is they create world-changing technology that improves the life of every person on the planet. They're very outward, future-looking mission statements, whereas NVIDIA is building a company that lets us do our life's work is much more internalized in terms of what the company specifically does and how well they do it. And they take pride in their work, and it's an overall commitment to excellence mission statement. AMD's organization has entered many dynamic shifts over the last 10 years. This was due in large part to CEO Lisa Su, who has torn up the company's foundations and begun fresh when she began her work over a decade ago. And one step in accomplishing this was changing the organization to a deadly efficient, mechanistic organization, one that puts her at a strong position at the top that allows her employees, which are highly specialized data engineers, data scientists, a guiding hand that allows them to be led towards a greater common goal. It's also useful for AMD because the strategy that they use, their genetic strategy they use, also works well with mechanistic organizations. This strategy, of course, is a focused cost leadership strategy. AMD offers significantly lower prices than their competitors, with still comparable performance. Nearly 50% cheaper in some places, and because they also make CPUs and GPUs, they allow a one-stop shop to differentiate themselves as an easier shopping experience for their consumers. Looking at the competitors, though, they use focused differentiation strategies. Intel and NVIDIA pride themselves in selling a high premium product that you will pay a premium price for, but has better performance overall compared to AMD. AMD knows that their main priority is the consumer's wallet. They know that if they can appeal to younger consumer bases that may not have as much money as older audiences but want to get involved in the business as much as possible, it allows them to enter the market at a much lower price point. While this doesn't seem possible to do without losing business, AMD is able to accomplish it through efficient manufacturing methods, as well as having significantly lower overhead compared to their competitors. And the topic of diversification, they also make up for it by making profitable expansions. And this will be seen in future slides through related diversification. Looking at AMD and what their main priorities for growth strategies are, the first and foremost is innovative products. They need to spend money to make money, which is seen through their R&D spending of over $5 billion in 2022 alone. And they know that they need to make the most innovative products possible to capture audiences' attention. both business to business side and business to consumer side. But on top of this, they spend their $23 billion revenues in increasing their horizontal integration so that they have greater financial security and are able to participate in more semiconductor businesses or semiconductor related businesses. Looking at their stock price, they have seen tremendous growth in the last 10 years, nearly 1,700% growth, which is 1,500% better than the S&P 500 performed in that same time period. One such example of this expansion was within the Xilinx acquisition back in 2020, where the company paid $50 billion for this programmable chip manufacturer. It allowed the company to focus on data center sales as well as enter a new cell phone processor market, which has been previously unsought after by AMD. Looking at their value chain and how it fits into the international business model, most of their CPU and GPU sales are done through online vendors and shipped across the globe. But looking more for business to business, their data center business, that also occurs internationally, but it operates for big businesses bigger than them. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Alibaba, and many others trust AMD as their data center processor provider. What this means is a lot of these companies have massive server farms to operate their cloud computing, their cloud businesses, and AMD supplies the processors for said data centers. Looking at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats that AMD faces as well as its competitors, AMD's main strength and subsequently core competency lies in their consumer-focused pricing model. They focus on providing affordable products for their consumers that are significantly less than their rivals. However, on the flip side of that strength lies their weakness, which is their lowest operating margin. And the problem with this is that they are not able to make such an operating margin compared to NVIDIA and Intel. The average for the industry is around 30%. AMD sits at around 22%, while Intel sits at 24% and NVIDIA sits at a staggering 37%. This is unfortunate for AMD, but the weakness also exists for the two rivals as well, as the high premium prices do not allow them to appeal greater to first-time audiences. AMD captures that audiences greater through their lower price point. Opportunity exists for all these parties in automotive and cell phone markets. And what would be considered a great threat for all firms in this segment is if one of the larger semiconductor firms, such as Samsung, Qualcomm, or Micron, were to begin entering the personal computer market. It would put extreme strain on their business model, and they might have to look elsewhere to sell their semiconductors. AMD's corporate culture is very unique. They have taken many steps to improve their internal culture. Initiatives such as employee resource groups and female engineer recruitment programs have been held by Dr. Lisa Su to ensure that their employees have the greatest diversity, belonging, and inclusion. DB&E, as she entails it, and it is crucial for her because not only does it make a healthy culture, it also allows AMD to recruit from the greatest talent pools possible. This is also seen through their supply chain responsibility, and they have taken efforts in the last 5 years to ensure that their minerals are sourced responsibly, their packaging is more sustainable, and their products themselves are more sustainable. This leads, last but not least, to the leadership. Lisa Su has been transforming this business from once a downtrodden business to one of the leaders now in the semiconductor industry. She has done this through unstoppable willpower. And if we were to look at the strategic leader pyramid, she would be a level 5 executive, no doubt. She's already shown tremendous greatness and excellent strategic leadership, and she shows no signs of slowing down. So I'm only looking forward to the future of AMD and to see when they challenge the bigger giants like Samsung, Qualcomm, and Micron. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.